It's Monday, January 25. This is the news on PBCJ. I'm Simone Absalom Gale. The 190 countries, including Jamaica, that signed on to the World Health Organization's COVAX facility should be getting their first tranche of COVID-19 vaccines in February. Director General of the WHO, Dr. Tedros Ghebreyesus, made the announcement during a virtual media briefing on COVID-19 recently.
Pending WHO emergency use listing, we expect almost 150 million doses of the AstraZeneca Oxford vaccine to be available for distribution by COVAX in the first quarter of this year. Together, these announcements mean COVAX could begin delivering doses in February, provided we can finalize a supply agreement for the Pfizer-BioNTech vaccine and emergency use listing for the AstraZeneca Oxford vaccine.
The WHO boss says rollout will commence with the successful negotiation and execution of supply agreements. He says with this new agreement, COVAX is now on track to deliver 2 billion doses by the end of the year.
This agreement also opens the door for countries who are willing to share doses of the Pfizer-BioNTech vaccine to donate them to COVAX and support rapid rollout. In my remarks to the WHO Executive Board on Monday, I called on the international community to work together as one global family to ensure the vaccination of health workers and older people is underway in all countries within the first 100 days of this year. The commitment of the United States to join COVAX, together with this new agreement with Pfizer-BioNTech, mean that we're closer to fulfilling the promise of COVAX.
Chief Executive Officer of Pfizer, Albert Bourla, says his company and its partner is committed to producing affordable COVID-19 vaccines.
We fully support and we are in alignment with the guiding principles of the COVAX facility. And we believe that Gavi's coordination of a COVAX advanced market commitment that supports the participation of 92 lower, middle, and low-income economies is an important tool that will help to ensure that developing countries have the same access to vaccines as the rest of the world. And we will provide the vaccine to COVAX for these countries at a not-for-profit base. We expect the first doses will be delivered in the first quarter of this year, once we finalize agreements with UNICEF and PAHO, who are coordinating procurement to support the delivery of these vaccines.
The new agreement has also been bolstered by the United States' decision to participate in the WHO's COVID-19 response program.
The United States of America announced that it plans to retain its membership in WHO. The United States has long played a vital role in global health. The U.S. was a founding member of WHO and has been a leader in the fight against many diseases from smallpox to polio and malaria to HIV. The U.S. contributes an enormous amount to global health, but it also benefits from WHO's work on a range of diseases, both infectious and non-communicable. American public health professionals who work at WHO and in other global health agencies gain valuable experience and lessons to use at home.
Meanwhile, in line with its mandate for equitable access, the COVAX facility intends to provide all 190 participating economies with an indicative allocation of doses by the end of this month. This allocation should assist with planning scenarios to enable preparations for the final allocation of the number of doses each participant will receive in the first rounds of vaccine distribution. As the spread and death toll from COVID-19 rises, Minister of Health and Wellness, Dr. Christopher Tufton, and his team underscored the importance of adhering to COVID-19 protocols during a press brief on Monday, January 25.
Major hospitals in Manchester are now at the amber and red alert levels. The Mandeville Regional Hospital and Percy Junior Hospital are at 76% and 83% occupancy respectively. This news comes amidst the announcement of new curfew orders for the parish. New statistics show Manchester with COVID positivity rates 3 times the national average. Citing non-compliance with the government's preventative coronavirus measures, Cabinet has, with advice from the Ministry of Health and Wellness, decided to enforce enhanced COVID-19 measures. These measures take effect Monday, January 25, and will last for 2 weeks, ending on Monday, February 8. Speaking Monday at a virtual COVID-19 press conference, Health Minister Dr. Christopher Tufton said in the last 2 weeks, Manchester has accounted for over 11% of all confirmed COVID-19 cases across the island.
Manchester has seen a rapid increase in cases, with 125 new cases between January 10th and 24. In addition, the cases are spread across the parish, with over 30 communities affected. There is non-compliance to infection prevention and control measures, as many persons are not wearing masks, and there is more crowding and gatherings that are observed on the ground by the surveillance team. The parish of Manchester accounts for some 11.3% of all confirmed COVID-19 cases in the last 2 weeks, and presently 5.3% of the total confirmed cases ever for the country are in that parish. The positivity rate for the parish has been the highest in the last 2 weeks, which is now over that period has been approximately 28% or 27.8%. And it is 3 times the national positivity rate, which stands at some 10.8%.
The parish now ranks 9th in overall deaths per population. The health minister says increases in hospitalization as a result of respiratory issues aided the ministry in making the recommendation for increased restrictions in the parish. Dr. Tufton says the aim is to not overwhelm the public health system, as doing so would result in persons not receiving care.
The health team in the parish has reported an increase in the number of persons presenting with symptoms of COVID-19 at health centers and the hospital. Contacts of these persons are also found to be positive when contact tracing is carried out. 85% capacity. This is compared to 78% for the Western Regional Health Authority, 61% for Sierra, and 56% for the Northeastern Regional Health Authority. So there is an increase in hospitalization.
In keeping with the Disaster Risk Management Act, the curfew hours for Manchester are as follows.
The curfew hours for Manchester will begin at 7 p.m. this evening, that's Monday the 25th of January, and end at 5 a.m. on Monday, February 8th, 2021, with persons allowed to move about between 5 a.m. and 7 p.m. each day. During the period, gatherings in a public place should not exceed 10 persons, and markets and vending in public arcades and public transportation centers are only allowed between the hours of 6 a.m. and 6 p.m. Additionally, between January 25th and February 8th, 2021, public transportation authorized by the Transport Authority Act will be allowed to operate between 4 a.m. and 8 p.m., and no passengers being transported between the hours of 4 a.m. and 5 a.m. and 7 p.m. and 8 p.m.
The Health and Wellness Ministry has also indicated concern for the parishes of St. James and St. Anne. Dr. Tufton says these parishes will be monitored using local public health teams. The Health Minister urged Jamaicans to be mindful of COVID-19 protocols. For the news on PBCJ, I'm Gabrielle Thompson.
The Private Sector Organization of Jamaica, PSOJ, and the Medical Association of Jamaica, MAJ, says private doctors should be allowed to carry out tests for COVID-19 at their offices. In a joint statement, they called for the wider availability of COVID-19 antigen testing. Essential, they say, to controlling the pandemic because it reduces diagnosis time. Additionally, MAJ President Dr. Andrew Manning says there is increasing pressure on the country's laboratory testing capacity. Senate has approved the Microcredit Act 2021. The legislation is aimed at, among other things, discouraging microcredit institutions from lending money at excessive interest rates that are not justified by the risk, or outlawing predatory lending practices, threats, and intimidation. It will also promote greater transparency and disclosure of pricing and reduce the risk of industry being used for facilitating money laundering.
Minister of Foreign Affairs and Foreign Trade, Senator Kamina Johnson-Smith, who piloted the bill, says the passage of the bill means more opportunities for Jamaicans.
Recognizing that this is intended to lift up and help and protect and to balance that with growth and development. So we do have to recognize. So there are microcredit institutions who will require it. That's how they balance their risk. That's how they run their operations. And maybe, you know, the guy with his $50,000 party and his profit of $200,000, that maybe he's not going to go to that institution. Maybe he'll go to another one that doesn't actually require. So that doesn't require him to prove how he will pay. So this is, again, this is how the market will operate. So yes, I am, and we are in support of market forces. But markets fail, and that's why I regulate. So we're here to protect the failure, which is the inordinate and predatory practices that are being inflicted on our people.
She notes, however, the need of legal and regulatory reform in that area of the financial sector.
The function of someone being charged, and again, this is linked to the point of the AML-CFT framework, etc., as juxtaposed with the pace of our courts. So in the circumstances where an officer or a substantial shareholder, one exercising influence over the operations of the company, is charged with an offense involving fraud or dishonesty, and this is in the assessment of the supervisor, a circumstance which puts its clients at risk, its consumers at risk for one reason or another, even if it could even be the business at risk because of the perception of other financial institutions. You know, one could, if no action could be taken, even in appropriate circumstances, then you could find circumstances where, as we have now, persons are charged and 5 years later you're still waiting for the case to be prosecuted. And in the meantime, who bears the brunt? Either the organization, the company, or the customers or clients of the company. And this is quite narrow. It's offenses involving fraud or dishonesty, and this therefore is not being taken on board. The policy is to empower the supervisor. It does not say that the supervisor shall. It says the supervisor may, and it would certainly be more appropriate, it is felt, that this be left to the discretion.
According to the leader of the government business in the Senate, the Microcredit Act 2021 is necessary for Jamaica to remain in compliance with the Financial Action Task Force and Caribbean Financial Action Task Force. Melvin Pennant, PBCJ News.
The Ministry of Education, Youth and Information is in talks with stakeholders regarding modifications to the administration of the 2021 CSEC examinations. Minister of Education, Youth and Information, Favour Williams, says 5 options are on the table and they're aimed at, among other things, resolving issues surrounding examinations last year. Mrs. Williams says the preferred choice for Jamaica is the administration of Paper 1, Paper 2 with optional questions, and the SBAs offered in June-July. Candidates who are not able to sit in 2021 will be accommodated in 2022. Mrs. Williams was addressing the Jamaica Independent Schools Association's National Parent and Guardian Association's virtual conference recently. Time now for a look at the Forex market and other business stories with Gabriel Thompson in the Business Report.
In Friday's trading session, the JSE combined index advanced by 1,058 points to close at under 400,000 units. Overall market activity resulted from trading in 83 stocks, of which 35 advanced, 28 declined, and 20 traded firm. The junior market index advanced by 11 points to close at under 3,000 units. Stocks advanced for 1834 Investments Limited, Barita Investments Limited, and Cargo Handlers Limited. Stocks declined for AMG Packaging and Paper Company, Berger Paint Jamaica, and Caribbean Cement Company Limited. Trading firm were 138 Student Living Jamaica, Access Financial Services Limited, and Blue Power Group Limited. Carreras Limited was the volume leader with over 5 million units, followed by Dermont Trading Company Limited with 1.7 million units and Wigton Wind Farm Limited ordinary shares with 1.5 million units. Now for the foreign exchange. The US dollar on Friday, January 22, ended trading at $146.76. The Canadian dollar sold for an average $114.21. The pound sterling traded for $201.19, and the euro ended trading at $181.78. Oil prices were steady on Monday as support from U.S. stimulus plans and jitters about supplies competed with worries about demand due to renewed lockdowns to prevent the coronavirus from spreading. Brent crude futures rose 7 cents to $55.48 a barrel. West Texas Intermediate crude futures climbed 5 cents to $52.32 a barrel. And that does it for the Monday edition of the Business Report on PBCJ. I'm Gabrielle Thompson.
In regional news, in St. Lucia, some small businesses have shut their doors in order to comply with the government's COVID-19 preventative measures. As part of efforts to stem the spread of the virus, some vendors are not allowed to keep businesses open past specified hours. Here's more in this report.
A comprehensive breakdown of business operations allowed to operate during the 10-day period of updated COVID-19 protocols was detailed by Permanent Secretary in the Ministry of Commerce, Sophia Henry. The measures took effect 6 p.m. Friday, 22nd January. Businesses allowed to operate during the 10-day period include
supermarkets, mini-marts, small shops, bakeries, doctors' offices, diagnostic and lab services, pharmacies, and other related health support services, farming, fishing, and other agricultural activities, food supply and preparation services, example restaurants, takeout services only, approved COVID-19 hotels, utility companies, gas stations, petroleum services, financial, including banking services, law offices, accounting firms, sanitation, solid waste management services, standalone hardware retail, call centers, broadcasting and media services, manufacturing and export-related services, customs brokerage, courier services, vendors, public transportation, garages, critical public sector projects, and other ongoing private sector construction projects.
A more comprehensive listing of allowed services will be available on the COVID-19 response website and government online platforms. The businesses given permission to operate are reminded to abide by established protocols of social distancing and mask wearing, and where possible, employ a blended virtual and physical approach to operations.
This suggests that where possible, staff are allowed to work from home, while meetings and other conferences are to be held virtually. Any sector or business not listed should remain closed for the 10-day period. For businesses seeking additional clarification on these matters, kindly contact your commercial membership organizations or the Ministry of Commerce at email mincommerce@govt.lc or contact number 468-4218.
The business sector is reminded that all commercial activity must cease no later than 9 p.m. Henry explains the decision was taken with due consideration of the economic impact on multiple industries, but she says getting control of the COVID-19 numbers is paramount.
The objective of these new measures is to limit the movement of people in order to prevent further transmission of COVID-19. We thank you for your continued patience and support as we work collaboratively towards a more prosperous St. Lucia.
A number of popular shopping malls, retail stores, and chains have issued notices to the public confirming the 10-day closure of their branches. Solange Alfred, HTS News Force.
In the Bahamas, overcrowding at Arawak remains a concern for the COVID-19 enforcement unit. Officer in charge, Chief Superintendent Shivago Dames, says weekends are the most challenging. Jasmine Brown reports.
Arawak, well, we understand that a lot of the vendors out there are doing their best to follow the protocols, but we find that on particular nights, at Sunday nights, that a lot of people tend to find their way to Arawak.
That's Chief Superintendent Shivago Dames describing how hundreds of people flock to Arawak every weekend. Dames' comments comes weeks after Arawak vendors told our news that they were concerned with large crowds gathering outside stalls and in nearby parking lots.
And that actually is a concern for us. Because you know that we are still in this pandemic.
During a national address on November 8th, Prime Minister Dr. Hubert Minnis announced spots such as Arawak and Potters Key could resume outdoor dining after COVID-19 infection rates on New Providence decreased. The vendors were initially allowed to reopen in June, but shut down a few weeks later as the Bahamas experienced the second wave. While some vendors insisted they were being harassed by the COVID police, President of the Arawak Conch Fish and Food Vendors Association and owner of Red Snapper, Rodney Russell, has said the COVID ambassadors have been a much-needed help for business owners. Dame says the ambassadors are just there to do their jobs.
And we want to ensure that we continue to see our numbers trend down, and so where we find large gatherings as Arawak, we would tend to go out there and try to ensure that the protocols are being followed.
Reporting for our news, I'm Jasmine Brown.
Barbados has recorded its 10th COVID-19 related death. Barbados Today has the details.
The 91-year-old Barbadian woman went to the Queen Elizabeth Hospital's Accident and Emergency Department on Saturday, January 23rd, suffering from acute respiratory symptoms. According to the Ministry of Health and Wellness, the elderly lady, who also has a history of hypertension and diabetes, was tested for the virus given her symptoms and transferred to the Specialized Infectious Diseases Unit at Int'l following a positive result. She passed away on Sunday morning. Meantime, Health Minister Lieutenant Colonel Jeffrey Bostic is urging all residents and, importantly, elderly persons to seek medical help early if they are having difficulty breathing or experiencing flu-like symptoms. He is also reminding the public to wear masks and to follow all other health protocols. Families and members of the same household are also being urged to exercise care in their interactions with each other. Meanwhile, the country recorded 46 new COVID-19 cases on Saturday. This includes 29 males and 17 females who are now in isolation, bringing the total number of active cases in the country to 744. A male staff member at Dodds Prison was also among the latest persons to test positive. As a result, the cases from HMP Dodds have moved to 360, comprising of 102 staff members and 258 inmates. At the same time, 12 people have been discharged from isolation, pushing the number of recoveries to 634. Barbados has recorded 1,387 COVID-19 cases to date. That comprises of 546 females and 841 males.
In sports, we sprint off with athletics. Having the state-of-the-art facilities, a stadium that supporters can be proud of, and increased revenue streams are the goals of the Ministry of Culture, Gender, Entertainment and Sports. They have implemented a number of measures to make Jamaica's national stadium a world-class facility. One of the measures is the replacing of the track. More from Marlon Samuels.
A new warm-up track and the relaying of a new competition standard track is being installed at the National Stadium and Stadium East by PSOJ of Germany.
This is a perfect example of good planning, because a decision was taken that we would put aside funds over time so that when it was time to replace the track, we would not be begging money. We would not have to be convincing Ministry of Finance to make funds available. So funds were being put aside gradually over time through the Sports Development Foundation so we could replace the track. We have gone over a little of the time that the track should have been replaced. One, because of the maintenance and care that IPL has implemented over the years. So we got a little bit more out of the track. But we felt that now is the time to do it rather than wait until people start complaining about the condition of the track. Because some of you might be too young to know this, but there was a time, there were constant complaints about this track and about Stadium East. So a decision was taken, policy decision, that we would make sure that the Stadium East track and this track would always be in pristine condition.
Could I just add, Minister,
yes,
that the decision to resurface was actually taken in conjunction with the J3s?
Yes.
We had an inspection, several inspections, and then we agreed together when we should replace it.
Mm-hmm. And the work that is being done here is also being monitored by the J3s.
Other stadium developments and refurbishments far along in the planning process includes an increase in the seating capacity.
The entire stadium complex, and particularly the National Stadium, will be, I would say, based on the plans we have, you could say rebuilt. All the seats will be replaced, most of the stadium will be covered, and we will have a royal box area and state-of-the-art technology in place and so on.
The redesigned stadium will meet the needs and aspirations of the community for generations to come.
The plan is that we'll do the stadium in 3 phases. Phase 1 will take out all of what we call little grandstand, yes, from the ground right up, and it will be rebuilt with skyboxes, special seats, bathroom facilities, which is grossly inadequate now, concessions, all of that will be there. Storage, we are very short on storage here now, plus the media requirements. The chairman mentioned that. As you know, media runs things now, and we have to make sure that our requirements, because we're not only doing it because we want to, we're doing it because we have to. There are certain international requirements that we fall behind, and currently we are being allowed to have events here on a grandfather clause. IWF and FIFA could say to us, no more games, you have not met it. Simple thing like having individual seats, which you don't have. Things like accessing the field. Spectators, officials, and players should not enter the field on the same thing. Having a proper, dedicated doping control center. These are no requirements. So that's part of the development plan. The second phase will be the north and south side, and there we're thinking that depending on where we start, we might even do both of them at the same time. And then the third phase will be upgrading the existing grandstand, which will be left intact. All the requirements, medical, security. One of the things that you know required is CCTV all over. You have one room where you have all the police, fire, all of them in one room. We don't have that facility now. All that will be put in place. And of course, the lighting, which is a critical part. We may even have to revise when the lighting comes in based on what we have down the road. Currently, our lighting levels do not meet the minimum requirements.
Each of those phases for the renovation will have been clearly defined, and how we execute them will be dependent on the financing that's available. Whilst there's a commitment, the cash has to be available. And let's not fool ourselves, Jamaica has to revise its own cash usage. The COVID and the pandemic has caused a situation, and if you see what the Minister of Finance has said, he's looking at various ways. But in all of that, we have been assured of the commitment to proceed with the renovation plans. It's going to take some time, and it will all not be done in 1 year, but we have to know that our targets is set, and we're going to keep our eyes on the ball.
The redevelopment of the National Stadium will see athletes from across the country and around the world competing in a state-of-the-art facility. For the news on PBCJ, I am Marlon Samuels.
And that's the news on PBCJ. I'm Simone Absalom Gill. Pleasant viewing.